Talia.
Shit. Do I tell him? Do I tell him? I whispered under my breath as I paced back and forth in my room. I went back to the clinic a while ago to sneak out another pregnancy test. I was in denial as soon as I saw that the first one I took was positive. So, I took another one. And another one. And another one. And all of them yielded a positive result. I'm pregnant. And with Luciano's child at that. Of course, I felt kind of happy deep inside my heart, knowing that I'm currently carrying the child of the man I'd come to love. However, fear and anxiousness overtook those emotions. I'm just 18 years old, for fuck's sake. And I just became a guard not even 2 months ago. How the fuck are the people around me going to react once they find out? And how the fuck will I be able to tell this to Luciano when we haven't been on good terms for the last couple of weeks? I bit my lips and thought long and hard about the pros and cons of telling Luciano that I was pregnant. The pros? I get to build a family with the person I love, Luciano. I've always been fond of kids, and having one of my own sounds like a genuinely great idea. The cons? The people around me aren't going to be happy once they hear that I'm carrying Luciano's child. Second, I'm unsure whether Luciano even likes kids or not. And lastly, my child's life would always be at risk since they'll be a part of the Cosa Nostra once they are born. But then again, Luciano doesn't seem like a person who runs away from his responsibilities, so he might accept this child. And to add to that, if he accepts this child, then he's going to do his best to protect them, won't he? I don't know. I ruffled my hair and plopped down on my bed. With the contrasting thoughts in my head, I decided that it would be best if Luciano found out about this. At the end of the day, this child is ours, and I don't want to deprive my child of a complete and happy family when they grow up.
Sometime later.
I stood outside of Luciano's office, biting my nails out of anxiousness. I made up a script in the back of my mind, but I feel like that's going to be forgotten once I enter the room. After much contemplation, I finally went closer to the door to knock. However, as I raised my fist up, I realized that the door had been slightly ajar this entire time, and there were some voices conversing inside the room. I took a peek inside and softly gasped when I saw Don Emiliano and Luciano talking with each other. "Are you really doing your work right, Luciano?" Don Emiliano asked. "I am," Luciano gruffly said. "Did you come here just to reprimand me?" "You've been different, Luciano," he said. Luciano sighed and clenched his jaw. "It's because I'm still grieving, father. Renee just died not even a month ago. You can't expect me to bounce back to my old self right off the bat. I'm doing my best not to show the other members of the Cosa Nostra that I'm being affected by this. My child, do you remember what I told you when you became the Don of the Cosa Nostra?" He circled around Luciano. "Be heartless. Be soulless. Have no tears." I frowned when I heard those statements. Saying that to a freshly turned 18-year-old doesn't seem like something a father would say. Look at me, Renee's death did not faze me for more than a day. That's because I've already accepted that death is inevitable in our field. The same thing goes for your mother. We cannot protect every member, so we have to accept right away that people are bound to die. Luciano's body went rigid as he looked at his father with a soft glare. "Besides," Don Emiliano added, "you should have known better when you initiated that mission. I insisted that you don't go, but you did. In a way, this is your fault," he coldly said. I looked at Luciano and wanted to run to him right there and then to tell him that none of this was his fault. He cleared his throat. "Is that it? If you're done, then please leave. I still have quite a lot of work to do," he diverted the topic. Don Emiliano shook his head and stood firm on the ground. "I'm not finished." "What else could you possibly say?" "When I say that you have changed, I'm not talking about your shift in attitude after Renee's death. I'm talking about something that happened even earlier than that." Luciano frowned and looked at his father with inquiry. "You've changed, Luciano, not because of Renee's death, but because of your new guard," he snapped. I froze in my spot. "They're talking about me, right?" What does Talia have anything to do with this? He exasperatedly asked. I don't know, Don Emiliano casually shrugged his shoulders. You tell me, Luciano. It seems to me that you're catching feelings for your beautiful guard. My heart started beating out of my chest, and even if I knew that this was a serious conversation, I couldn't help but feel giddy about Don Emiliano's accusation. I waited in anticipation of Luciano's response. What are you talking about? He spluttered, making my heart stop. I'm just telling what I've observed, Luciano. Ever since you've got a new guard, you have become softer. You're not as heartless as before. You pick the longer route rather than the easy route. And you handle more projects that are not aligned with the objectives of the Cosa Nostra. Father, Luciano massaged the bridge of his nose. You're looking into this too much. I'm the same. I haven't changed. I'm not sure. Maybe it's better if we just terminate. Dad! Luciano burst out, making me slightly jump in my spot. Don Emiliano, however, remained stoic while looking at Luciano. Talia and I are nothing. My breath got caught in my chest. She's my guard, for fuck's sake. Nothing else. She could die this very second, and I won't even fucking care.
Talia.
I went back to my room, my plan of telling Luciano about our child completely thrown out of the window. Before I even knew it, a tear fell out from my eyes. Fuck. I muttered under my breath with a small smile, roughly wiping my eyes. Just when I realized my feelings for him. Just when I was ready to confess. Just as I found out that I'm fucking pregnant, this happens. I locked my room and leaned back on the door. I slid down the door, tears still streaming from my eyes. I sobbed uncontrollably as I thought about everything that happened for the past 2 weeks. I know that I have a fault in Renee's death, but I hope he knows that I'm also devastated by it, that I'm also struggling with this all alone. I thought he would have felt some type of affection towards me considering we've had sex before and he's kissed me plenty of times. However, maybe all of those were just for his physical satisfaction. I'm just his guard, nothing more, nothing less. I could die right now for all he cares. Fucking hilarious. I wonder how he'll react once he finds out that he's wishing death upon his child too. Honestly, he probably wouldn't even bat an eyelash, considering it felt like he fucking meant it when he told his dad that I could just die and he wouldn't care. At that point, I realized just how cruel the Mafia is. One day, they act like they're important to you, and the next thing you know, they don't give a fuck at all. I should have really just listened to Luciano's advice, never trust anyone in the Mafia. Along with that, Renee's words lingered in the back of my mind. I kind of wish that we could have lived a normal life, but I don't think that's possible in our family. It's always been about the Mafia and never about us. I don't want my child to experience any of that. Or experience what I have been through when I was a child up until now. I want my child to grow up in a loving household where they aren't forced to become something they don't want to be. I don't want them to face any imminent threats in their lives, to be a child that is free to play and have fun. And I'm going to do exactly that. Even if it means that I have to do that all alone. Asterisk.
Luciano.
Talia and I are nothing. She's my guard, for fuck's sake. Nothing else. She could die this very second, and I won't even fucking care. I said with utmost sincerity. I felt a bitter taste after saying those words, but I need to put up a front if I want my father to believe that Talia is really nothing to me. He still had a suspicious look in his eyes, but he eventually let it go. You better make sure of it, Luciano. My father said in a stern voice. Once I find out that you've engaged in another relationship with Talia other than her being your guard, I'm going to step up. I stiffened, but I didn't make it that obvious. Trust me, he walked closer to me. You wouldn't like it if I interfered. Duly noted. With that, I gestured for him to go out of my office. I don't think I can take more of his bullshit. He gave me one last look before leaving my office. I slumped down on my chair as soon as he was out of sight. Fuck, I muttered under my breath as I clutched onto my aching head. My mind has been a mess ever since Renee had died. For the first time in a while, I feel like I don't know what to do. I'm only trying to appear all right on the surface since there's no room for emotions while being the Don. There's so many negative pent-up emotions in my mind that reflected my anger on other people. One person particularly came into mind. Talia. He gave me one last look before leaving my office. I slumped down on my chair as soon as he was out of sight. Fuck, I muttered under my breath as I clutched onto my aching head. My mind has been a mess ever since Renee had died. For the first time in a while, I feel like I don't know what to do. I'm only trying to appear all right on the surface since there's no room for emotions while being the Don. There's so many negative pent-up emotions in my mind that reflected my anger on other people. One person particularly came into mind. Talia. I sighed when I remembered the words I just said to my father a while ago. It hurt me to say them, but I knew that it was necessary. I know what my father is capable of, so it's better if he doesn't know about the setup of our relationship. Right then and there, I felt myself missing Talia. I stood up from my seat and entered the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror. I couldn't help but chuckle at my appearance. My stubble looked unkempt, my hair was a mess, and I looked like I haven't slept in days. I retrieved the razor from the cabinet and started grooming myself. After a while, I stood in front of the mirror and nodded my head in satisfaction. This would do for now. I got dressed into more decent clothes and got ready to meet Talia. I closed the door to my office and went to her room. It was quite strange that she didn't greet me a good morning or give me any coffee today. For the past few weeks, she's been taking care of me well, and I was nothing but an asshole to her. I clicked my tongue and shook my head. I really should apologize to her. I knocked on her door and waited for her response. However, even after a while, she still hasn't responded to my knocks. I frowned. Is she not in her room? But she really doesn't go out of her room unless she's with Daisy. And as far as I know, Daisy is busy helping with the training system right now. She's been redirected to that task ever since Renee had died and she had no one else to guard. At that moment, I knew that something was wrong. I opened the door and surprisingly found that it was unlocked. I entered the room and looked at the interior with a frown. Empty. Her room was empty. Not a single belonging of Talia had been left inside the room.
Luciano.
Fuck, I muttered under my breath as I looked for Talia around the house. Have you seen Talia? I asked at the other guards. They all shook their heads, making me frown. I went to the training system and barged into their headquarters. I ignored the other guards that greeted me along the way and went straight to Daisy's seat. She frowned when she saw me coming her way. Good afternoon, Dawn, she greeted. What brings you here to our office this day? Are you with Talia? I asked. Reese noticed our conversation and listened in. No, she shook her head. Isn't she in your office, Dawn? I massaged my temples and shook my head. Are you sure that she isn't at your place? I asked. She shook her head once more. No, she said. The last time we spoke was last night. I haven't seen her at all today. Shit, I cursed once more. Why, she asked. She's gone, I said. What? Daisy and Reese exclaimed at the same time. Gone? Reese asked. What do you mean by that, Dawn? She's gone. She's not in my office. She's not in her room. Her closet is empty, I continued. How could she be gone? Reese asked, concern laced in her voice. Right. Reese and Talia are siblings. It's your fault, Daisy suddenly said, making me frown. Reese snapped his gaze to her. Daisy, you do not speak like that to the Don. I'm just telling the truth, she said. Talia has been having a hard time ever since Renee died, but our dearest Don over here acted like he's the only one hurting. If you only knew how much Talia has suffered, then she wouldn't have left, she glared at me. With that, she walked away from the two of us, her footsteps ringing heavily in my ears. Daisy, Reese exclaimed. Come back here. I held out my hand and shook my head. It's all right, I said in a soft voice. She's telling the truth anyway. Call the other guards and search for the entire area. She must still be around, I said. Don't stop looking until you find her. Asterisk.
Talia.
Shit, shit, shit. I whispered under my breath as I looked for a place to hide. The skies were already dark, and I was just about to board a bus to go to the remote province a few hours away from the city. However, when I was about to board the bus, I saw some familiar people searching the area, one of them being my brother. Why are they looking for me? I asked myself. As far as I know, Luciano doesn't care one bit if I die on the streets, right? Are they looking for me because of him? Probably not. They're most likely looking for me because I left the Cosa Nostra without following the formal process. You can't break away from the Mafia just because you want to. There's a tedious process you need to follow if you want to leave. It would probably take a year or so, but I can't afford to stall any more time. They murder the people who break these rules, all the more that I should not be caught by them. I was hiding inside a dumpster, enduring the pungent scent just to get away from the guards of the Luciano clan. Thankfully, they only passed the dumpster that I was hiding in, probably thinking that I wouldn't have the guts to hide inside this thing. However, worse calls for the worst. I quickly jumped out of the dumpster as soon as I saw that the coast was clear. I also saw another bus approaching the station. This was my chance. I tightened my jacket around myself and bolted towards the train. In doing so, I realized that I wasn't able to retrieve my backpack. Fuck, I looked at my bag sitting on the ground. I considered going out of the train for a second to retrieve it since all of my clothes and money were there. However, I saw Reese lingering around the area, so I had no choice but to duck down on the seats and forget about my bag. Not getting found out was my topmost priority from here on out. But, wait. I realized this when the bus was already out of the area. How the hell am I going to pay for the fare?
Sometime later. Luciano.
Did you find her? I asked Reese as soon as he entered my office. He looked down on the ground and sighed. At that moment, I was already expecting some disappointing news. My sister is stubborn, he said. If she wants to pursue something, she's definitely going to go until the end. That's one thing that I can't beat. Then, are you saying that there's a low possibility that we're going to find her? I asked with frown. He chuckled. I think so, he said. I found this, though. He placed a familiar backpack on top of my table. I saw it near the bus station. I'm thinking she left it when she was trying to escape. I opened the bag and my frown deepened. These are her essential belongings. How is she going to survive without any of this? Have you contacted your father? I asked. He nodded his head. She hasn't come home. He's actually quite disappointed that she had the guts to run away. He doesn't consider her as his child from here on out. I let out a deep breath. How about your relatives? I desperately asked. Do you have other relatives she could contact? Reese shook his head. If it isn't obvious yet, Talia's not really fond of our family. All of the people from our father's side aren't fond of her too, since she always challenged our existing norm. My mom's relatives have never been introduced to us since she broke away from her family when she met Dad. I threw my head back in frustration. Leave, I said, wanting to be in my own space. He bowed his head in respect and walked to the exit. However, he stopped just before he exited. Aside from Talia's stubbornness, she's also strong, he said. I frowned. What do you mean? She can handle herself well, he added. And I'm sure that she'll come back if she wants to.
Sometime later. Talia.
I bit my lips in anxiousness when I realized that I don't know where I am anymore. I didn't leave the bus on my intended destination since I haven't paid the fare yet. So, I decided that waiting until the very last stop to compromise with the bus driver will be the best option. I wanted to tell him that I'll pay for the bus fare tomorrow after getting some money, but he kindly refused and told me to be on my way. However, I didn't know where this place was. All I could say is that it looks quite primitive and old-fashioned, like people still get their waters from wells. And it's also quite remote. Not a lot of houses were scattered in the area. Actually, only farmhouses and barns are the only things I can see right now, so I honestly don't know where to go. I considered asking the bus driver for another favor by letting me ride on the bus to go back to my intended destination. However, I wasn't thick-faced enough to ask another favor from a kind man. So, I decided to walk around and look for an option along the way. As I was walking, my stomach grumbled, signifying my hunger. I smiled bitterly and caressed my stomach. "It must have been hard, I said softly. "I'm going to feed you later, don't worry. Mommy's just going to look for a place to stay."
Watch out!
I heard somebody scream when I was talking to my unborn child. I looked up and saw a small truck heading towards my way. I didn't have much time to react since it was only a few feet away from me. Before I even knew it, my vision turned black.